For over 3 decades, the men and women of the United States military have been trained to fight enemies across the globe, trusted with the most advanced weapon systems on Earth, sent into the most dangerous combat zones imaginable, and then told that when they come home to their own military base, they cannot carry a firearm to protect themselves. That ends today. On April 2026, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth signed a landmark memo that officially ends the gun-free zone policy on United States military installations. In a video posted to social media, Hegseth stated the words directly: "Our military installations have been turned into gun-free zones, leaving our service members vulnerable and exposed. That ends today." This is a massive policy shift that has been decades in the making, and every American needs to understand exactly what just changed, why it happened, and what it means going forward. To understand the significance of this moment, you have to go back to where this policy came from. The restrictions on carrying personal firearms at military bases trace back to a Department of Defense directive that went into effect in February 1992 under President George H.W. Bush's administration. In March 1993, early in the Clinton administration, Army Regulation 190-14 was issued, which codified and tightened those restrictions across the military. Under that framework, military personnel were effectively barred from carrying their privately owned firearms on base. Government-issued weapons were locked in armories and only distributed during official training exercises. Outside of military police and personnel on specific security assignments, American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines were essentially unarmed on their own installations. The same warriors trusted to carry weapons in Iraq and Afghanistan could not carry a firearm while walking through a military base in Texas or Florida. That policy stood for over 34 years, and in those 34 years, the consequences became impossible to ignore. On November 5, 2009, Army Major Nadal Hassan opened fire on soldiers at Fort Hood, Texas. 13 people were killed and more than 30 wounded. Trained soldiers in their own building were defenseless. They could not shoot back. In December 2019, a Saudi national undergoing flight training at Naval Air Station Pensacola in Florida opened fire in a classroom building, killing 3 American sailors and wounding several others. Again, armed response had to come from outside the base, from local law enforcement. Every precious minute that responders took to arrive was, as Hegseth put it, a lifetime. More recently, shootings at Fort Stewart in Georgia and Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico have continued to expose the same fundamental vulnerability. Soldiers trained to neutralize threats in combat were left in the position of tackling armed attackers with their bare hands because they had no firearm available to defend themselves or their fellow service members. Now that changes. Here is exactly what the Hegseth memo does. The memo, titled Non-Official Personal Protection Arming on Department of War Property, directs installation commanders to allow service members to request permission to carry privately owned firearms for personal protection while in a non-official duty capacity on Department of Defense property within the United States. The critical word in that directive is presumption. Under the new policy, the default answer to a service member's carry request is yes. If a commander wants to deny the request, that denial must be issued in writing and must explain in specific, detailed, and individualized terms why the request was refused. The burden has been completely flipped. Before this memo, it was virtually impossible for military personnel to get permission to carry personal weapons on base. After this memo, commanders must justify any refusal to allow it. Hegseth was clear about the constitutional foundation behind the decision. He stated that the Second Amendment enshrines the right of all citizens to carry weapons to protect themselves, their families, and their fellow countrymen. He said that service members, entrusted with the safety of the entire nation, are no less entitled to exercise that God-given right to keep and bear arms than any other American. He put it simply, our warfighters defend the right of others to carry. They should be able to carry themselves. There is one notable exception in the memo. Pentagon personnel are not yet authorized to carry inside the building itself. However, the memo does direct the Pentagon Force Protection Agency to apply the same presumption of approval when it comes to allowing personnel to store a privately owned firearm in a vehicle on the Pentagon reservation. It is a distinction that reflects the unique and high-security environment of the Pentagon itself, but it still represents a meaningful expansion of firearms access for those who work there. There are also legitimate practical questions that will need to be worked out. Military.com noted that the directive leaves open details about how privately owned firearms will be carried, stored, and integrated with existing security protocols. Questions remain about how armed off-duty service members will interact with military police at entry gates, in housing areas, and in other high-traffic or sensitive locations. There are also legal and operational questions about how federal installation rules will align with varying state firearm laws. These are real implementation challenges that base commanders will need to address. Not everyone is welcoming this change. Tanya Shard, senior counsel at the Brady Gun Violence Prevention Organization, noted that Department of Defense leaders and the military's top brass had historically opposed relaxing the existing policy. Critics argue that introducing more privately owned firearms into a complex, high-stress military environment could create new risks rather than reduce them. They raise concerns about accidents, escalation during disputes, and the challenge of distinguishing armed service members from threats during an actual emergency response. Supporters, however, point to a straightforward reality. The United States sends its military personnel to some of the most dangerous places on Earth and trusts them completely. Those same people deserve the right to defend themselves at home. The tragic shootings at Fort Hood, Pensacola, Fort Stewart, and Holloman Air Force Base each demonstrated that when a threat emerges inside a military installation, the minutes before armed responders arrive can be deadly. A trained service member on the scene, legally armed, could make an immediate difference. Trump had actually been promising to end gun-free zones on military bases since 2016, when he declared at a campaign rally that he would remove them on day one of his presidency. It took until 2026 for that promise to become reality. What Hegseth signed on April 2, 2026, is not just a policy change. It is a statement about who this country trusts and why. The men and women who volunteer to serve this nation, who train for years, who deploy overseas to face genuine danger, and who swear an oath to defend the Constitution, those people will no longer be left unarmed on their own bases. For 34 years, the policy said otherwise. As of today, that is over.